Because it is Thursday, March 12th, 2026, and it's Ferret Day. That's right. In our classroom, March 12th is a very special day. More important than March 7th, in fact. Coming up later on in March, March 21st, will be our next Knowledge Fellowship seminar series, where our special guest will be General C. General Stee. But before we begin our lesson, make sure to mind the class rules. Use your redeems at your leisure. Enjoy them. That's what the points are for. Have fun. Make as many clips as you like. Ask lots of questions if you want. Give your feedback. Use your Amazon Prime free sub if you want. We don't try to ask very much for subs and donations. If you want to support the channel, we really appreciate it. And for those of you who do, it means a lot to me. We're very small, little independent folks here. Your stream avatar too, running around on the screen there. Most importantly, of course, just following along, sharing what we do with others, have fun, and check out the Knowledge Fellowship, the stream collective that I'm a part of, in the About section. Always someone streaming something fun and educational there. Today, it is March 12th, and that means our fun facts are related to March 12th. And the first one is that it is National Popcorn Lovers Day. It is the day if you love popcorn, and you know what? I kind of do. Depends on the type. So that's our first icebreaker. What is your favorite type of popcorn? I gotta say, the type pictured there looks like caramel corn, and that's probably my favorite. I'm a salty sweet kind of guy, and I like caramel corn. I don't really need any of the other stuff with it. You know, like the peanuts and Cracker Jack. I'm okay without that. Caramel corn, toffee corn. I like that. That's my jam. Butter's okay. Extra butter's okay. Rao, you like classic movie popcorn with enough butter and salt to kill even Mick Jagger. Somehow that makes sense. Kettle corn is one that I really like. Again, though, because it's that sweet, salty mix. Gives me a little bit of both. The other big fun fact for today, though, is that March 12th is the day that Tim Berners-Lee invented the World Wide Web back in 1989, 36 years ago. With the original logo of the World Wide Web, just 3 W's there. I don't know if it's so much of a win for us ever since, but yeah, Tim Berners-Lee invented the World Wide Web, proposing this universal linked information system. First adopted in 1989 on March 12th. So we have him to blame or thank for wherever we are today, together with each other. This was the little Google Doodle that was celebrating it. I remember having a computer like that. I mean, not in my house. We were too poor for that. But at the school. Yeah, I'm sure he had good intentions, Mr. Berners-Lee, Rao. Purgatory. 1 million years purgatory. Yeah, Henry. Well, technically, it's the World Wide Web's birthday. I think the internet goes back farther, and the World Wide Web is like a way for accessing it. And welcome, Pawnima. We're just getting going. Yeah, he gets 1 million, 1 day in purgatory for every terrible thing that the internet has brought about. But I mean, there's some good stuff too. Yeah, it is the birthday of the World Wide Web on March 12th. But why don't we get started with our lesson, our very important, very special lesson. Because today, in our VTuber health class, it is Ferret Adoption Day. Because it's Moki and Ori's birthday. Well, I mean, I don't know the exact day they were born. This is the day that I adopted them. This is the day that I first got them at the store. I think they were about 6 months old when I got them. So we just used this as the day of their adoption. This is their birthday. So let's meet them. You've seen them. You love them. Moki and Ori are 4 years old, or thereabouts. And they're sable ferrets. That's the name for the color of their coat that we'll talk about a little later. And they're a big brother and a little sister. Well, they're the same age. Size-wise. And this is what they looked like the day that I got them. I had prepared a small space in my basement. I had a little unused closet area that I'd cleared out and set up a space for. And I was going to get ferrets. That was my initial thought. But then there were none around in any of the stores. And there were none up for adoption anywhere. And I started thinking, well, what about rabbits? What if I got some rabbits? That would be a nice space for them. Maybe a small dog, because I didn't want to leave a big dog cooped up in the house. Maybe some other small pets. And then I went to this store. This was the last one I was going to check before just deciding to get a rabbit. And there they were. And I didn't have the room all ready yet for ferrets. But the store was like, yeah, nobody's adopted them. They've been here for a couple months. We're going to send them to another store. See if somebody in that area wants them. I said, nope, there'll be no need for that. And I took them home. And the rest is history. They were very sleepy when I first got them. And there they are. Ori, as you see, is the little sister. She's more hyper. She's more active. She likes to bite between fingers, and she likes to bite the skin of your wrist area. She's considerably darker than her bigger brother. Moki is the long one. He's much more chill. He's much more lazy. He'll rather lick than eat or bite, but he will bite too. He likes to hide food. Once the food comes out, he likes to take a big chomp of them and go hide them somewhere in the room. They've always got food, so I don't know why. He just likes to do it. And they're named after Ori and the Will of the Wisps characters. There's Ori. Ironically, she's the darker one, but this is Moki. One of my favorite games, and I was playing it around the time that I picked them up. And since we've gotten them, we've gotten a few little pieces of art about them. This is the classic meme. The woman yelling at the cat, except it's Ori. I told the artist to put Kiryu behind me, and she didn't know who that was, which was shocking to me. A VGen fan artist who didn't know who Kiryu Kazuma is. Like, what? There's the Ken and Barbie meme. The mugshot. Them on my shoulders. But we got to ask a couple questions first before we get going fully on the lesson part. And that is, firstly, what is a ferret? What is a ferret? It's an existential question. Apple Dragon is correct. It is a tube cat, also known as a Mustela furro, or a thieving weasel, which seems like a very insulting name. But as we're about to learn over the course of this lesson, it's more or less accurate. The cat snake, as Rao says, the thieving weasel. They're from the family mustelids, which includes weasels and stoats and badgers and otters and wolverines. Badgers, like myself. Most mustelids are carnivorous. Some will eat just about anything, but most of them are carnivorous. What they generally share is small, squat and/or slender bodies, low to the ground, with scent glands, that musty scent that they get their name from. But they can be found in all kinds of environments. They can be arboreal, living in trees. They can be burrowing, like badgers, or aquatic, like otters. They're suited for just about every environment. They're kind of like crabs. Everything evolves into crab in the water. Everything evolves into weasel on the land. But these are their cousins, like me, badgers, right here. The kind, polite-looking European badger. The hobo goblin honey badger. And me right here, the North American badger. And the rest of the family, stoats and ermines, minks, otters like this guy here, the ferret of the sea. Notably absent from this family of stinkers, of scent gland stinkers, are skunks. That's because skunks are no longer in the mustelid family. They used to be in there. They used to be in the family. We kicked them out. They were too stinky. And they also found genetic evidence showing that they were more distinct and should be their own family. But yeah, skunks used to be in our family, and we threw them out after the incident at the last family reunion. Otters are, in fact, the real murder maniacs. That's who you really got to watch out for. Ferrets will steal from you. Otters will put a knife to your throat. Yeah, ferrets, specifically. They're the long and lean version of a mustelid. They average about 3 pounds, or 1.4 kilograms, if you want to get European about it. Or about 20 inches long, about 50 centimeters long, if you want to get European about it. In the wild, they eat small rodents, fish, birds. Yeah, apple dragon. It's wild that just, we decide one day, this animal doesn't belong here anymore. But we've done that with plants, too. Like, there's no such thing as vegetables. There's no such thing as a vegetable. Vegetables don't exist. It's just a made-up thing. It's not actually a physiological thing. It's like corn is technically a vegetable. It's not, because vegetables aren't real. Corn is a grain. Yeah. It's imaginary food. So here's a ferret, a wild ferret, a black-footed ferret. Getting the best of a groundhog or prairie dog. Very fast creatures. And rabbits too. And they can take down rodents that are significantly bigger than them. So if you're playing with a ferret and it bites you, it might hurt a bit. Just remember, if they actually wanted to bite you, you would be bitten. They have quite a powerful bite. So if they're play biting you, they don't mean to hurt you. Just remember that you're 10 times bigger than they are. Ferrets have a very strong sense of smell, and they can hear very well, too. They don't have the best eyesight, but they're not colorblind, like some people think they, along with a lot of other animals, are. They're not colorblind. They can see red, and they can see some shades of blue, and they have pretty good low light vision. So what a human sees as purple, ferret would see as a very dark blue, for example. Other colors besides red and blue would just appear sort of washed out, a little bit muted. They can still see color. I'm always fascinated by how they figure this stuff out. Are you a ferret, Ponima? You have the same kind of colorblindness? You have ferret vision? Maybe you are. They also have a very high metabolism. They eat constantly. They eat 8 to 10 times a day. Up to about 5 to 7% of their body weight throughout the day. They don't eat a ton at each meal, but they eat throughout the day a lot. They snack a lot. It's mostly two ways from my understanding, how they figure out the colors animals see. They look at the cones and rods under a microscope, and they determine how many of each type they have, because, you know, there's red, blue, and green receptors. But then they can also do tests that are more like practical, like showing them different things in different colors and seeing which ones they can recognize. Which is easier with, you know, the smarter the animal is. You could probably tell if a monkey had color blindness pretty easily with little puzzles. But because their smell is better than their eyesight, they use those scent glands they have to mark their territory. Male ferrets are called hobs, and females are called jills. I don't know where they get those names from. I don't know of any other animals that have that delineation. But hobs and jills generally have pretty notable size differences. So we've got a hob here on the left and a jill on the right. And that holds true for Moki and Ori as well. They're pretty distinct in size. They are obligate carnivores. Of the mustelid family, they are obligate carnivores. That means that they only eat meat products. So generally, they get a pellet food that is primarily a chicken or other animal product, high in protein, high in fat. They get very attached to their food as well. If they eat one particular type of food, if that's the food they're given when they're at the store or at the breeders, that's the type they like. And they will turn their nose up at anything else. They get very particular. My ferrets were raised on a brand of ferret food called Marshall's, and I tried to buy them a super premium brand. I mean, the brand they have is a normal, regular brand. I tried to buy them a super premium brand, thinking I'll be really nice. They just flat out refuse to eat it. They only want the food they grew up eating. But they also love this treat, Furovite, which is a supplement. Gives them additional vitamin A, folic acid, B vitamins, oils that they like. But they also get very particular even with the treats. Some people will give them a variety of treats. I can't really, because they don't care. They only want their Marshall's dry pellet food and this little nutrient paste that tastes like a jelly to them. Yeah, and they did come from a ferret farm, and that must be absolutely chaos there, for sure. Ferrets have been around for a very long time. They are relatively recent as a domesticated animal, but it's been a lot longer than people might think. And they've been in our popular culture for longer than people might think. They were first domesticated about 2,000 years ago. And they were domesticated from the ancestor of the modern pet ferret, the European polecat. This guy right here. This guy right here. Perfectly depicted sitting on a pole. That's a polecat. In case you've heard that word before and weren't sure what the heck it means, that's what it means. It's a cat that sits on a pole. Well, it's a mustelid that sits on a pole. Where they were domesticated is considered in or near the Mediterranean. We're not exactly sure, but that's about where it was. And they'd been domesticated and in use for some time by about the Roman Empire. Why do you think they were domesticated? What do you think the reason was that people domesticated the European polecat for some reason? Yeah, Romans did have ferrets. Rouse says they're good for getting into tiny holes, so good for varmints. Apple Dragon says for fun. Chaos, sicking a ferret in someone's house. Fatima, their slim build, getting anywhere and stuff. Yes, yes. All quite valid. Primarily pest control. And for their beautiful appearance. But they were great at ferreting things out. Yeah, get the name now? They were great at ferreting things out. They were good for limiting the rodent population in and around your granaries. So they were kept around like cats would be. But unlike cats, ferrets can get into smaller spaces better. They can actually follow those rodents into their burrows. So while cats will scare off a lot of things, ferrets will get in there and get them. They would be kept around people's grain stores. Yeah, ferrets are like a special build tree of the cat. Yes, Henry. They're in a special skill tree. They are slinky little hunters, as Dr. Phil says. This is a painting by Leonardo da Vinci himself, called Lady with Ermine, although it's much more likely a ferret. Pretty famous painting that you may have seen before. It's painted in 1490 on an oil painting on walnut wood, depicting Cecilia Gallerani, the mistress of Ludovico Sforza, the Duke of Milan. And it is actually one of four portraits, well, four surviving portraits that were done by Da Vinci. One of those four being the Mona Lisa. So we have four surviving portraits of women by Da Vinci, and one of them has a ferret in it. That's how cool they are. Ferrets were then brought to the Americas in about the 1600s, for about the same reasons. But ferrets are depicted in all kinds of art throughout that period. This beautiful pendant of a ferret dates to the 1500s. Imagine how rich and how much you had to love ferrets to have this made, to commission this. Empress, they were first in the Mediterranean. So in and around Rome, Greece. It must have cost a fortune. Oh, anyway, yeah. This painting is from actually an illustrated book called The Hunting Book by Gaston Phobos in 1390. It depicts people using ferrets for hunting. Not just for rodent control, but for hunting for people. Not, they weren't hunting people, but they were using the ferrets to hunt food for people. This guy holding his long, slinky noodle. This painting, with the lengthy title, Pope Celestinus III grants privilege of independence to the Spedali, by Domenico di Bartolo. Di Bartolo being a pretty famous painter as well. In 1443, this man is wearing his ferret around his neck at a high society event, or some kind of important event. So it must have been a fairly beloved and well-behaved pet. Then this illustration from 1551, from a compilation called the Historiae Animalium, by Conrad Gesner. So ferrets, known, beloved, depicted in art, all the way into the modern period. Like Redwall. The logo not showing up for some reason. There we are. Like in Redwall, which features quite a few ferret characters. Like Kilconey, and Vale Sixclaw, and Rumska. Now, in Redwall, ferrets are mostly villains. They're primarily depicted as villains in the story, which isn't very fair to them. But some of them are at least complicated. Vale Sixclaw is a kind of a complicated character. But when I was reading back up on Redwall and the ferret characters, it did remind me just how, well, a lot of people would think they're not for kids nowadays. Perfectly fine for kids, in my opinion. But a lot of people today would probably not think so if they were to come out now. People would think this is too dark, this is too nuanced for little kids to be reading as a cute little anthropomorphic fantasy story. But I mean, if they can handle animorphs... What I'm saying is that this ain't Harry Potter. Vale Sixclaw was the abandoned son of an evil king who didn't care about him, just abandoned him. But he got raised by the good guys, by this loving, like, church mouse who loved and defended him, even as he grew up surly and didn't like other people because he was a ferret and they didn't like him. And he ends up trying to poison the abbot to death. And then he flees. And then he ends up meeting his father who abandoned him, and they have a fight to the death. But his mom followed him because even though he had been exiled, she still loved him. And then just as Vale Sixclaw and his father are fighting to the death, the father's about to jab him with a spear and kill him, and the mom jumps in front of it, and he ends up stabbing her, or no, the other way around. He was about to stab the mom. I'm forgetting how it works, but one of them dies, and they die in each other's arms or something like that. It was like, good lord. And hello, Ren, yes. Yeah, it's a very mature story. Very Shakespearean. Very Hamlet stuff. There are other depictions of this wonderful family of creatures, like Daxter, who is half otter, half weasel. He's an Otzel. And of course, some program has to restart. Anyway. Daxter is an Otzel, half otter, half weasel. All man. And the Toon Weasels, the Toon Patrol, who are short-tailed weasels. Always laughing. But what about ferrets as pets? We've talked about the origin of ferrets and ferrets in popular culture. What about these little goobers as pets? What about these slinky noodles as our personal friends? Well, they are the 10th most popular pet in the world. They're the 10th most popular pet. Where do you think the rest rank? If ferrets are the 10th, where would you put the rest? How popular do you think the rest are? Yeah, I don't know if it's physically possible in the real world, Henry. Or if they decided this would be a fun thing to put together. The Jack and Daxter people. Wanima thinks cats are number 1. Parrots are in 3rd place, Empress says, so birds generally, probably. Well, dogs are number 1. Dogs are el numero uno. Cats are number 2. Fish are 3rd. Children, I don't think make the list. Children are way less popular. Wow. But horses, yes, horses are the 9th most popular pet. Yep. But dogs, cats, they are number 1 and 2, as you probably imagined. Fish and birds. And then very small rodents like hamsters and mice, gerbils. Then rabbits, reptiles is very broad. I think birds is very broad as well. I think birds is a pretty broad category. Yeah, reptiles is everything, right? Snakes, lizards, turtles, geckos, all kinds of stuff like that. But the top 4 makes perfect sense. At the top 5, actually. Because they're all quite easy to deal with. But yeah, then horses and ferrets. Insects and spiders don't make the list. I like turtles, Panima says. Classic reference. But ferrets. They're usually descented when you get them. And they're usually spayed and neutered. Depending on where you get them. But most places, most breeders, they are spayed and neutered, and they're descented. That scent gland is removed. They still smell with their musky odor. But we'll talk about ways to mitigate that. Yeah, bears aren't pets, unfortunately. Ren, you had a jumping spider. How high could it jump? They should not be kept solitary. Ferrets should not be kept solitary as pets. So you can have a cat on its own. You can have a dog on its own. You have some of these creatures on their own. Ferrets should not be solitary. You should have at least 2. I would love to have a 3rd. In fact, I told my vet, who said sometimes, yeah, they have pets who get left there or need adoption. I said, if you ever have a ferret come in, call me, because they know I have a nice space for them that we'll show later. If you do keep them caged, they should be given at least 1 complete hour or more of free play, handling them, playing with them. At minimum. Like this. Just chuck them around. That's how it happens, Rao. That's how they get you. Once you pop, you can't stop. Pop goes the weasel, because they're technically weasels. Yippee! Yeah, I genuinely would like to have some more ferrets. A third would be really fun. I think they would like it. Because if you just had to deal with your brother or your sister all the time, and your 10 times bigger weird owner, yeah. But you should give them that time because they love to cuddle. And they will nibble in play and bite for attention, which is probably why they bite me a lot, because they want my attention. And they love to burrow and to dig and to climb. And they are smart enough to be litter trained, if you're consistent and you do it well. Mine, I would say they're about 80% litter trained. Not because they have the instinct to bury it like cats do, but because they always like to go in the same consistent place. They find a place, generally a corner, where they can look out and see everything around them, where they feel safe, and that's where they always like to go. So if you can get them to consistently go in one spot and you have a litter box there, you can get them to use it. Give them a treat every time they do. I mentioned earlier that our little fellas are sable ferrets. There are quite a few color combinations available of ferrets. There's the classic sable, the sable mitt, and the sable mask. We have sable mitts. There's Siamese, which are just sort of a lighter type of sable. There's Blaze, who have kind of badger face coloration. There's Black-Eyed White, which are all completely white fur, but with their normal black eye color. And then Albino, which, like most albino creatures, have a kind of a red eye with white fur. Can an opossum be counted as a ferret? No, sadly. They're like, I don't know, hobo ferrets? You like the stripe on the marked white? It does look cool. It does look very cool. It looks like a unique creature. Sables are the most common type. That's the type that we have. You probably know that a group of ferrets is called a business. A group of ferrets is called a business. And don't they look like dapper little businessmen? They look like something. One of the better names for a group of creatures. Obviously, Murder of Crows is the number one. Murder of Crows, absolutely the best name for a group of creatures. Business of Ferrets is way up there. It's a top 5. They do have a great handshake too, yes, Ponema. That makes me wonder what your other favorite names for a group of creatures might be. I know what the others in my top 5 might be. Obviously, we said Murder of Crows and Business of Ferrets. Those are 2 in my top 5. Chibi Methosim says a fluffle of rabbits. That is maybe the best descriptive one that there is. Like if someone told you that the name for a group of rabbits was called a fluffle, you're like, yeah, that tracks. I have to say, a parliament of owls is one of the cooler ones. A parliament of owls. It just makes sense. A group of jellyfish is actually called a smack. A smack of jellyfish. A skulk of foxes, that's really good too. Because, I mean, foxes skulk around all the time. Oh, embarrassment of pandas. Embarrassment of pandas. Yeah, they are kind of embarrassing, aren't they? I did not know that one, Dr. Phil. A loveliness of ladybugs. A convocation of eagles is good. A pandemonium of parrots. Coalition of cheetahs. Is that actually what it is? Why am I? They say the Portuguese term for a pack of wolves is alcateia. That does sound good. I always thought that raccoons would have a cool name, but it's just called a nursery of raccoons. Now, come on. It's not as cool as a group of lemurs, which is a conspiracy of lemurs. But ferrets are intensely curious. They love to explore. They love to investigate everything. They love to probe for possibilities wherever they're at. I think Henry Barrett asked earlier if they've gotten underneath the wood. Well, they haven't needed to because they've been able to get through everything else. This means that if you have a ferret, your home requires ferret proofing because they will get through almost anything and everything. Anything that they can get their head through, they can generally get their body through. And they'll try. They love to chew and to steal and to hide because, I mean, they are called a little thief. They're called the thieving weasel. And speaking of chewing, stealing, and hiding, this is something I took of them. This was supposed to have the Metal Gear sound effects, but they're not playing. That's fine. Dragging Snake off to his doom. Oh wait, it is playing. Can you hear it? It should be tracking the audio. Snake? Snake? Snake! There we go. Now it should work.
Take him to Detroit. Nani?
No! No, not Detroit! No! No, please! Anything but that! No! Not Detroit! No! No, please! Anything but that! No!
Snake, are you okay? Snake? Snake!
So yeah. That was pretty good. Yeah, their stuffed snake is their favorite toy, I would say. But it's okay, because they like to sleep about 12 to 18 hours every single day. So they get their fun in, and then they love to rest. And by sleep like the dead, I mean sleep like the dead. In fact, it's called ferret dead sleep. They can be sleeping so fully, so soundly, in ways that I can't even imagine, can only dream of, that this is what it sometimes looks like. When they feel safe, this is how they might sleep. Just a complete flopper. They don't care. And then they wake up and it's all good. You know, hey, what's up? Food? Food? Play? Is it playtime? Is it food time? Yeah, I would also sleep that same amount, Henry, so I guess I can't judge them. Some other important things to remember. That yes, they are mustelids, so they have a musky odor. But this can be mitigated. First off, of course, they are generally descented when you get them. But you can also take good care of them, and it will reduce the smell. Think of it this way. If you ate nothing but junk food and Mountain Dew and Taco Bell and Doritos, and you didn't move around and you just sat in your room all day, you would probably have some bad BO. But if your ferrets get good enrichment, and you get them plenty of exercise and stuff to do, you give them a good diet, you can give them a special supplement in their water to help with it, it really doesn't smell that much. I just put an air purifier by the door to their room. It's no worse than, I would say, having a dog in the house. Remember, though, that they are as curious as a cat, as instinctual as a hunter, as playful as a dog, and sometimes as dumb as a rock. And they have no regard for their own safety. They will get stuck behind walls. They will fall out the window. They will get themselves trapped in things. They just can't help it. So you have to help it. Because they love to explore. Here's some vid of them clamming around in a little box in the adjacent room. Look at it, always probing every corner. I found them in that box multiple times. If I put a little blanket under those metal rods, they would sleep there. GD, I don't know if they know their names, but they will come if I, like, snap my fingers. If I snap my fingers and, like, scratch at my pants, they will come. Mostly so that they can climb up my pants. Climb up to the top of my head. Which they do, all the time. Pretty sure there'll be a video of that coming up. But yeah, they will Shadow of the Colossus it and climb up all the way to the top of your head. Because they want that that view from above. Yeah, they are like little toddlers, Apple Dragon. That's totally accurate. And of course, there's the Weasel War Dance. The Weasel War Dance. This is that little floppy, kind of jazzy movement they do when they're playing or play fighting. Sometimes people think it's because they're instinctual and it was something they used to do to hypnotize prey. I don't know if I buy that, but the Weasel War Dance. Yes, you can cut their nails, and you should if they get too long. Generally, if they have plenty of space to move around and they're getting a lot of exercise, they stay down enough. But at their yearly checkup, the vet cuts them, and then I cut them if they really need it throughout the year. Let's show the Weasel War Dance. Show them at play. You'll know it when you see it. They flip-flop around, and a lot of times they'll back into stuff because they get all clumsy when they get excited. They are a little quick on their paws, right? They kind of flop back and forth, kind of face sideways. Oh, and this is their other favorite toy. It's a shag rug. They will play that. They will play with that rug as much as any other toy that I've bought them. Oh, did the ad break scare you? My bad. Yeah, they do love to climb up everything. Climbing up to the top of my head is maybe their second favorite thing to do. They'll climb all the way up into my hair. They don't care. As long as you have pants. Otherwise, they'll just try to climb up your skin, which, you know, that can be more of a problem. Yeah, I have a video right here of them climbing up my pants leg. Let's show that. All the way up my shirt. There's them climbing on the outside wall of their room. They love to do that as well. I let them play in the guest bedroom sometimes, and they like to climb up into the covers. And welcome back. Thanks for sticking through the break, those of you who had it. And then, of course, there's the noise they make, which my ferrets don't make a lot of noise. In fact, ferrets generally don't make a whole lot of noise. But they do make a noise, and generally it's called duke-duke, or duking. So we'll play a video of ferrets making noise, because these ones make more noise than mine. That's their playful duke noise. They do make some yips occasionally, but other than playing or like being mad, pretty quiet. They do like to do this to fight in the tube. Me and my two little ferrets. Yes, you always want to have at least more than one. You want to have 2 or more ferrets at a time. I would love to get a 3rd ferret. Some of the other stuff to think about, though, for ferrets, if you want to have them as a pet, remember, in some states they are not legal. They're not legal in California, Hawaii, New York City, or DC. They're also not illegal in New Zealand or Australia. Some states where they are legal do require a license. And it does make sense because you don't want them to get out into the wild. Because of their characteristics, they are prolific hunters. And it would not be good for the local ecology for them to get out. They can go out with a leash, but I'll talk about that in a minute. Most importantly, though, you gotta keep good care of them. Have their once yearly checkup and make sure they get lots of enrichment. They're curious, active creatures. They need that. They can get along with some other pets. They can get along with cats. Okay. Mostly because cats are fairly solitary anyway, and as long as the cat can get away and be left alone, they don't care. Dogs, if the dog is fairly gentle, is good. But they're not so much good with other pets. I don't think it's a good idea to keep them around other pets, because most of those other pets would become prey. How do I keep them inside? Well, they are kept in their own room. I have their own room for them that I will show in just a moment. So they look cute and cuddly, but they are killers. And they will kill. And they will kill again. So as for enrichment, this is their room that I made for them. It was a closet space that I didn't really use anything for, so I turned it into this. Put down some simple wood flooring, covered the walls, some grass-like carpet, homemade wooden furniture, stuff for them to climb in, this $5 giant Barbie house that I got at Goodwill. Lots of tubes. Cardboard boxes are plenty good for toys for them. That way they never need to be kept in a cage. They've always got at least this room to run around in, and then I'll play with them. Additionally, we'll go into the larger basement area and play. Important stuff to keep in mind for their care beyond enrichment. You should check the breeder markings. If you get them from a major breeder, they will generally have a little tattoo on the inside of the ear. The different markings will tell you where they came from and whether they've been spayed or neutered and descented. Mine have the two little dots to show that they're Marshall ferrets. They do require some vaccinations, particularly distemper vaccine. They can be susceptible to adrenal disease because of their early spaying and neutering. So you need to be on the lookout for lethargy beyond their usual sleepiness, or for hair loss. These are more common in the more exotic colorings, and in the albino varieties, in the cinnamon and chocolate varieties, I believe. So the color varieties, which have required more extensive breeding of particular animals, this can be more common. Bald spots, yes, Pawnima. Watch for bald spots. They may also be susceptible to insulinoma, which is a tumor on the pancreas, which can give them trouble with their insulin levels. They can also suffer from gastrointestinal diseases and blockages, in part because they put everything in their mouths. So make sure that there's nothing around that they can chew on that you don't want them to. They can also get the flu, like a person does. In fact, they have a pretty similar response to respiratory diseases like humans, which is an important consideration to remember for just a few slides from now. So in short, they have very few warning signs, and those warning signs don't come up very quickly, or don't come up very early. So stay watchful. Make sure that they get preventative care. Make sure that you're staying on top of things early. One question that has not been asked yet is about bath time. Well, ferrets don't need to be bathed very often. In fact, once or twice a year at most. Anything more than that would dry out their natural oils. They actually might get stinkier if they're bathed too often. Their natural oils help keep them smelling nice. And you just used 2 to 3 inches of water. Sometimes they can just be curious about water. Sometimes they're irritated. Yeah, Empress, they generally keep themselves clean, and they generally have those natural oils to keep them. Just run the water over them with maybe some gentle shampoo. They have special ferret shampoos. You run the water over them, rub the shampoo into there for a little bit, and then pour water over them to rinse off, and then let them dry themselves off mostly. Just give them a towel and let them scrabble around in. Make sure the water is just warm. Don't want it to be hot. Can they have the flu vaccine, Cheapy Methos? I'm so glad you asked that. I'm so glad you asked. Because we'll move ahead one slide to the science. Ferrets, because they have similar flu symptoms and have a very similar immune response to respiratory diseases, they are actually used in the testing of flu vaccines pretty extensively. When I gave my lesson about the flu vaccine, we talked about this a little bit more. Sheep are often used for the incubation of the vaccine. Ferrets are used in testing effectiveness. When we were first trying to figure out how to have a useful vaccine for the H1N1 strain of flu, ferrets were very important. A few hundred test animals each year help save thousands and thousands and thousands of people's lives. Yes, rats are extremely useful for testing Ponima, and it's because they are rapid breeders, and they also generally have some similar responses. We go up with ferrets, specifically in these respiratory diseases, because they basically behave the same way to a flu that we do. There was one other scientific piece of curiosity I wanted to mention, though. And that is in the Large Hadron Collider at CERN, many years ago. They were having a problem with the giant tube that runs for miles and miles and miles. And they couldn't figure out if there was a blockage or if there was a leak somewhere. They couldn't figure out how to deal with it, because that would mean checking all those square feet of tube. So one guy had a bright idea to just put a rope around, a leash around a ferret and have the ferret run through the tube. That's what they did. They had this ferret run through the tube. Yeah, they are proficient business folks. Felicia was her name. Felicia the ferret. Helped Fermilab. But yeah, outside the house we were talking about. Someone asked. I forget who asked. Yeah, I do not let my ferrets go outside the house. It's just because of, I don't know, me. But they can be brought outside. And some people do. With a sturdy, secure harness. Like this little fella. Make sure you acclimate them to it first. Make sure you have them wear it for a while so that you can see if they were able to get out of it or not. Make sure you're being very careful about the environment around you. checking them for ticks, checking them for anything else that they might get themselves into, pesticides, things like that. Other animals that they might encounter. And supervise at all times. If you think you need to keep a good eye on them in the house, even more so outside. But yeah, it's their birthday. Happy birthday to them. Let's put their little video back up. As much trouble as they can be. I love the little goobers. So glad that I found them. Rabbits would not have been the same. They have so much personality. So if you're interested in ferrets, I definitely urge you to check them out. But be sure that you're ready. Be sure that you have plenty of time and love to give to them. Because they do require plenty of your attention. A little prevention goes a long way. I haven't had any real major issues with them. I think Ori did get the flu at one point. She had all the signs. She was okay after a couple days. And a space, yeah. Even a large cage is still a cage. Rao is right. Just like for us, even a cage is, even a large cage is still a cage. These cute little goobers will give you all of the energetic play you want if you take good care of them. If you want a cat that's definitely going to be more affectionate than most cats, yeah, there's also a good reason. But it's like toddler-proofing your house. It's never going to be perfect. They can get themselves into some scrapes, so to speak. But oh, I haven't shown the most recent one. Yeah, I gotta show that one. There's one climbing up on the head. Biting for attention because I was away all day. Hypnotized by the hand. But oh, what's that? What's that giant teddy bear? Oh no, it's Vor. Yeah, that's a good question, Rao. How old are the ferrets today, class? What birthday is it? They got eaten by a bear. Well, today, since we don't know their actual exact date of birth, so I don't know how many months they were sitting in their cage when I adopted them, they are 4. Well, they have 4 adoption days so far. So they're probably 4.5. Since they were probably about 6 months old when I got them. So yeah, maybe a third would be great. Give them a young little friend. Energetic little scamperer to keep them on their toes. I will make sure to give them plenty of treats. With your names on them. Class. So why don't we play a game that has ferrets in it? I think that's a good idea. We could pull for Sparksy. Although, I have a feeling that she and I aren't going to like each other very much. Instead, I could play Super Animal Royale for the first time, which apparently has ferrets in it. And my friend, my old friend Enma Duray is a content creator for this game. So I should at least give it a shot. I should at least try it out once. So let's do that. Let's play Super Animal Royale.